All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity live conversation for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Thanks for joining us today. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where here is. Where are you? Where in the world are you joining this conversation from? If we've never met before, my name's Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis. I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. Doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you've circled a date on the calendar and you said 2022 is my year. You're on your runway to starting your own thing. Or maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 10 years or, I don't know, 29 years. You're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. Great to have all of you here. Let me see who's in the room today. It looks to me on my screen as if Christian in Ithaca, New York, is the first into the room today. So, Christian, you are the winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. Congratulations. Christian's joining us over on Facebook. Scott Thrift says it's a blustery day on the bay, which means San Francisco. Welcome back, Scott. And Matthew. Hi, Matthew. Glad to have you with us today. East Coast or Midwest today? I think East Coast. James Petty, welcome back from upstate New York. James is joining us on YouTube today. Jessica, hi Jessica, welcome back. Hello from my Los Angeles COVID cave. Hope you're recovering. Hope you're feeling okay and doing well, Jessica. Thanks for joining us from Los Angeles today. Mark R. LePage is live from Greensboro Aquatic Center in North Carolina. And Michelle, I love this every single day. Hi, it's Michelle Hodel from La Mesa, California, 10 miles east of the Pacific Ocean. Welcome back, Michelle.
I wasn't aware that she was so far from the ocean.
Yeah, I
I thought I
knew.
pictured her closer.
Yeah,
So
I didn't realize exactly the distance, but I knew La Mesa was inland from
mm,
San Diego. But
mm.
there she is, 10 miles inland. How's that?
I just was not picturing it that way. So
More than a
glad you
stone's throw.
clarified. Much,
Yeah.
yeah, probably even you couldn't throw that far.
No, I could not. I could not throw that stone that far. As usual, I am joined by Katharine MacPhail from. I'm going to have to start saying from Massachusetts
Yeah,
because
that's fine. I'm still in the same old place, but yes, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yep, yep.
Thanks for
Here I
joining
am.
me
I'm
today.
back. I'm back. I missed it
That's right.
last
Welcome
week.
back.
Yep. Did you guys even
Mandy
notice I
filled
was
in
gone?
last week. They
Maybe not.
did.
Yeah,
They knew you were gone. Mandy was our gracious guest co-host last week, so thanks for that,
that
Mandy.
was nice of her to do that.
Yep, it was. It's great to have
Hmm.
her, and it's great to have you back. And I, as usual, I pronounced Michelle's name wrong, Hodel instead of Hotel. Still from La Mesa, though. Melanie,
Mm.
welcome from Charlotte. If you are on Facebook right now and you are just typing away in the comments and you're saying, hey, my comments are not showing up on the screen, it's because you are in a private Facebook group, either the Entree Architect Community Facebook group or the Architects and Allies Facebook group. And Facebook has these rules. If you're in a private group, they can't let your name or your likeness or your comments out unless you give them permission. So if that's the case for you, we have a new toy, little scroll at the bottom there,
Yeah, what's that? Okay.
chat.restream.io/FB is scrolling by right now. We can also do it.
Always something new around here.
There is something new.
Hmm.
Um, Type that into your URL, chat.restream.io/FB. And with a couple of clicks, that will solve all of your problems. You'll start showing up just like Christian is and Evan is. And Michael Dern is on LinkedIn. He's showing up. Hi, Michael. Jessica is on Facebook. Michelle is on Facebook. So chat.restream.io/FB. There you go. Thanks.
I don't think I
Um,
like that ticker.
so the bottom left of your corner right now, that will give Facebook permission to talk to Restream, which is where we are right now. And then all of your comments and such will come through. So if that's something you're experiencing, that's your solution right there. Now, We have a special guest today. We've been waiting a while. I mentioned this earlier in the week as I was brainstorming several weeks ago about upcoming guests and topics and things. I realized that we had never done a Context and Clarity Live on the architect and contractor relationship. And that actually it amazed me a little bit, especially because in my opinion, these relationships can be make or break in terms of the success of the project. So I reached out to somebody that had the good fortune of meeting probably over a year ago. First, I think via Clubhouse, and then connecting after that. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute. But I reached out and said, "Hey, what do you think about talking like this?" Or talking about this. And he said, "I would love to talk about that architect contractor relationship." So that's what we're going to get into today. So our guest is a founder and a president. Not the president, but he's a president. He's a mentor, a podcast host, and a contractor. He's the founder and president of AFT Construction in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he's the host of the AFT Construction podcast. Brad Leavitt, welcome back. Not welcome back. Welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Jeff. And I do have to make a plug. So you said Michelle's from La Mesa. So I was born in La Mesa. I actually went to Helix, which she'll know, Helix High School, which is right down the street. So born and raised, La Mesa, Lemon Grove is where I grew up. And then I moved to Phoenix in 2005. So when you were introducing her, I'm like, that's too funny. That's a small world.
That is a small world. That's very cool. So Michelle and I have known each other for a lot of years, and um, when she comes into our conversations every day, she always says, "Hi, it's Michelle from La Mesa, California," and so I've always always got to do that. So
Of
there you
all
go.
places, La Mesa, what a small world. Yeah.
It is a small world. It's a small world, and that's one of the great things about our audience is we're spread all over the world. So we may have somebody popping in from Australia or who knows where as we're talking, but a lot of West Coasters, actually a few from Arizona. Are typically in our audience. Of course, some of us in the Midwest and then East Coasters as well. But um, it's great to have you from, I'm sure, what is now cool Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah, it's a brisk 100 degrees out. It's not bad.
Yeah. Well, we're in the Midwest. We have your weather, except we've added humidity to it. For
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why we're doing
It's
this
worse for
week,
you
but
right now.
yeah, it's not much fun. But in the
Yeah.
basement studios, it's okay. It's not bad at all. Um, Brad, I was listening to your podcast. Um, it was earlier this week, and you were talking about the fact that when you first got started, when you were a young guy just getting started, going out on your own, that there weren't that many people out there that were willing to help. And I was listening to that. You said, other contractors didn't want to help you. Architects wouldn't call you back, those types of things. And I was thinking about where you are now with AFT Construction, and you've got a summit coming up for contractors, and a lot of what you do is, I would say, in parallel to what we do at Entree Architect. Entree Architect is all about helping architects build better businesses, and I think that's exactly what you're doing on the contractor side, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you look at it, it's interesting. This is one of the challenging things about construction. For a long time, there was this very closed-minded, relationship between contract, architect, designer, and uh, the lack of cooperation, maybe concern about secrets or trade secrets or industry secrets, whatever they may be. It's just one of those things that I think social media has changed that, right? That's what I was speaking about, that, through LinkedIn, through the channels like these discussions we're
Yeah.
having now, Jeff, Clubhouse. I mean, Instagram has totally changed everyone's view of this thing. It's like, why are we all operating in the dark? Why are we not collaborating? And I've even seen now, I know we're going to speak about this in the conversation, but just the synergy involved when you can have a design team together, contractor, designer, landscape architect, these four entities, the success of the project, the experience for the customer is completely different.
I love that you say that, that experience for the customer, because I think a lot of us can get caught up in, oh, well, my role is this, and um, is this contractor going to be a good teammate, or are we going to support each other? But ultimately, yeah, of course we have to do our best work, and of course we have to survive the project and everything like that. But ultimately, it's what we all have to be after is the best result for the client. So when you are working on projects and thinking about that collaboration, do you ever do you ever have a starting point? How do I build this team? What's the best way to build this team? Um, or do you have a stable of people that you draw from, or what's your process of building teams?
That's a really good question, Jeff. And I think the best way to answer is as we've worked in the industry, you do have a resource of team members, right? And
Yeah,
a handful of architects and designers that I've had great success with. We have great relationships. We understand, the enough of the other person's business as well as how they collaborate and communicate and the detail of their design drawings and specifications. And so it's pretty easy now that with social media, that client experience that we're speaking about is that the client will reach out maybe to me, maybe the architect, maybe the designer. And as we get to know the client and listen to them and understand, okay, style, budget, time frame, these things that are really important to them, it helps me align them now and say, well, I know the perfect architect, right? That's going to hit your style. I know the perfect designer that's going to hit your budget, that's sensitive to what's important to you. Let's speak with them. And then we bring them in. And then now we're starting as it should be. Every project should have all these components from the very beginning, because now for that year pre-construction, all that heavy lifting is done. And then we get into the build. And then that should be the pleasurable experience, right? The tagline I use is saving marriages one house at a time, right? So the only way that can happen, it's a very stressful experience, is that if the only way that can happen is if we plan correctly up front. And the only way that can happen is if we have that team together from day one.
yeah. I like that tagline. It's so true. I mean, so many of the folks in the audience that do residential work talk about the marriage counselor role
Yeah.
during the project. What percentage, if you have a handle on that? I know you have a handle on everything that's happening in your business, but how often are the people that the clients that you work with, how often are they going to the architect first? How often are they coming to you first? And do you see any rhyme or reason between their approach to the first contact?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's changed, Jeff, over time. I mean, especially, early on, you're begging, especially starting your company, reaching out, knocking down doors of architects and designers to refer you. But fortunately, a lot of this is through social media and through reputation and things that we've done. But as of today, or I should say, as of the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, over 80% of our clients are coming to us first. I mean, mostly 90. I mean, it's probably 9 out of 10 come to us. We're the first on board, and then we're putting that design team together. So that really does help, put together a team that I trust, that I know is going to be successful, and they're going to, serve the needs of the client. And and so with that, it is really beneficial because now I've already built this relationship with the client, whether it's through social media, through YouTube, through, I mean, whatever it is. And then, there's a personality behind it. So when they come in, there's comfort, they know who we are. And then now we can put that team together. And I know one of your questions here is, they're asking, well, design, build, and we can get into that because I do have some
Yeah,
comments on that because everyone's
let's go
strategy is a
for it.
little bit different, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sure. Okay. So it's interesting. This is something that I've wrestled with. I network with some good contractors now, and this goes back to the earlier point in the conversation, Jeff, that local in my area contractors were unwilling to say, "Hey, Brad, let me put my arm around you and help you out as a young guy coming up in the
yeah,
business."
yeah,
There's one gentleman by the name of Rod Collum who builds out here, Collum Homes, and he's been great. He's always put our arm around me, like never looked at me as a competitor because some people either have the mentality of abundance or the mentality of scarcity, right? And
hmm,
I've always been mentality of abundance that, like, for good people, there's always room, right? And if you can perform and if you're, you know, live up to your reputation, there's going to be opportunity, and there's plenty of opportunity out there for those that are going to do it right. But the benefit of LinkedIn now and these social media channels and Instagram is that now you can build this network of builders, right? And network of community that are going to assist in that communication. And then going back to the design build aspect, one of the benefits, I'll say one of the huge pros of being a design build, like a true design build, I have my own architect, my own designer, and I'm doing full turnkey. Well, there's no pointing fingers, right? There's no blame. assessing like this isn't my fault. Like we're responsible. We're responsible for budget, for value engineering, for cost. I mean, everything's in house. The con would be is not in all cases, depending on the talent or size of your team, but sometimes it can limit you to, certain projects, depending
Mm.
on if it's like an ultra modern home to maybe a transitional home to maybe a Tuscan home. Not every design firm can handle these very complex and very different styles. Also, that referral arm, and this is where my opinions change a little bit because now I see as the builder I'm being brought in. And so if we were a design build firm, yeah, I mean, we're getting the leads now. I don't need the architect to refer me, but I've always looked at the collaboration. I see a lot of value in a lot of the consultants and architects and engineers. And the reality is everyone's so busy right now that it is important to have those arms because I have some architects that are very good and they can do different styles, but some that specialize in ultra modern, someone that specializes, in like a Santa Barbara style. And so now I can work with them, have that flexibility, their expertise, where they're doing something that's a little bit more timeless and will, protect the client's investment.
You well, we've spent a little bit of time talking about getting started, and there are a number of people in our audience who have started their own firms in the last, say, 2 to 3 years. So if you're just getting started on the architect side, right, and you want to start developing good relationships with great contractors, what would you suggest that these folks do? How do they find somebody like Brad Leavitt that is willing to work and willing to build relationships and willing to be a great teammate in the design and construction of those projects?
That's a great question, Jeff. Again, so here's my advice to that is, you think about just like standard sales approach, right? It's those 7 points of influence, right? That you're in front of the customer. But what you don't want to do, and this is and I'll give LinkedIn's a great example. LinkedIn it's a great platform because it's very organic. It's all professionals. It's one of those platforms that if you like one of my posts, Jeff, your whole network sees it, right? So you connect with the
Mhm.
right people and it can quickly grow your business. So when I started my company, and I've told this story, is that, I would call some of the top architects in town, I'll call some of the top interior designers, and they never called me back. They wouldn't email me back because they're like, I knew of them to some extent, but they don't know me from whoever. And here I'm a new business owner. They're not going to trust me with their, $4 million house that they're
Yeah.
building for their client. And so it's just falling on deaf ears, right? And we know how those cold calls go when you're starting a company. So my strategy was, well, let's build some success through social media. Let's start Instagram. Let's be active on LinkedIn. And so every day I'd post. It's very non-soliciting. It would just post and I'd be connected to these architects network, to these designers network. And so repetition, after a year, they're seeing my face come up every day on LinkedIn. And they're like, one of the top architects that I'd been chasing down finally calls me on his own. And I wasn't soliciting him. And he's like, Brad, I'm really impressed by like the thought leadership, like you're sharing how you're doing things, you're educating, you're showing the quality, the site cleanliness. Let's have dinner. So I go have dinner with him and he's like, can you help me with my social media and kind of my branding? And then, let's do a project together. I got one for you. And so it was just a backdoor approach where it wasn't like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Call me. It's just, here's my information. Here's how we do it. Like, here's our ethos. Here's our, like our company culture. And it just, you start building that reputation. Additionally, now I look at it in this way. So now when architects or designers are reaching out to me, now that it's flipped a little bit, or even more importantly, some of my suppliers, subcontractors, and trade partners, is occasionally you'll have someone that just DMs you right away. Hey, Brad, love what you're doing. I want to sell you this. And it's like, yeah, I can see where that's a little bit of a turnoff. However, I've had subcontractors that follow me on Instagram or follow me on LinkedIn, and every day they're liking my posts and every day they're commenting. And so I see that, like we see that stuff. I see how engaged they are. I see that they care. Now, when they reach out and say, hey, Brad, I think, I may have a value proposition for you. I may have this product. I think I have a solution here. My ears are open because they built a relationship. And so what I love about LinkedIn and Instagram is you can build this relationship by commenting and liking and engaging
Mhm.
before you ever get to that sales. And now that door's open where, that you have the opportunity to get the conversation past just, hey, hire me for your next gig.
Yeah. Well,
So
going. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm just writing these down because I need this advice for myself. So I'm writing your advice down. So are you saying that to find people on Instagram in kind of a casual way who you think that you would like to work with and just engage with their Instagram? Because sometimes,
100%. Yeah.
and then,
Well, here's the thing, Catherine.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can look up in your area. So for me, being in Scottsdale, I can look up all the top interior design accounts. I can look up all the top architecture accounts. I can connect with them and I can engage. And that they see this stuff. They're seeing me engage. Go to LinkedIn too. I mean, another secret about LinkedIn, I shouldn't say it's a secret, but not only can you connect with, the top designers and architects, but I could connect with all the top brokers and real estate agents in town. I could connect with all the top CEOs, all the top executives, right? And so this is a way where they're learning about me without me never meeting them, or you meet them at a conference or at a networking event. You get their business card, and first thing I do, connect with them on LinkedIn, and that network begins to build. And so, yes, you can actually search them specifically. You can find them organically, and then through those channels, you build that rapport.
Hmm.
And it
And
works. Trust me, it works.
well,
You know what?
you go ahead. Keep
I was
going.
just thinking about how LinkedIn, everybody who's on LinkedIn is also on Facebook, but then everybody on LinkedIn just acts professional. Like you say, that's where the professionals are, but
So
that's
yeah,
where you
but
just
here's the
act
reality.
professional.
Well, here's part of it. So Facebook has the biggest platform by user, right? They dominate the worldwide industry. But here's the issue with Facebook: from ads, from advertising, politics, especially, right? People do get tired a little bit of the Facebook platform, and I've
Yeah.
seen LinkedIn's a little bit different. For me as a contractor, I mean, how many contractors are on LinkedIn like posting every day, just like, building this platform, right? And there's not. It's just open. It's an open forum. And if you do it very professional, that's the thing about LinkedIn. People don't get as tired going through their feed because
Hmm.
right, wrong, and different. No one wants to involve politics in their day to day. All of us have different views, and it's like it's just we're not going to get anywhere if we're sitting here arguing about that. So
Right. No, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a direction that I had not anticipated this conversation going, but I think it's really important. I think there's a super important lesson in this. Going back to the dinner with the architect, he reached out to you because you were building this brand, which is one of my favorite topics. You were
this is you,
building
Jeff.
this, yeah, you teed that up really well. Um, you were building this brand about your company culture, the quality, the job site cleanliness, all those things that you said, and that's what this particular architect noticed and then reached out. And if whichever side you're on, if you're on the architecture side or the construction side, wherever you're coming to this conversation from, I guess what I would say, and maybe ask you, Brad, if you feel the same, is think about the things that you care about. Oh, if I've designed a house and it's being built for this client, it's got to be this quality, to match this design. I don't want to take the client out to see a job site that's a disaster, or whatever, all of those things, and then all of a sudden you see Brad's post or a contractor's post, and it lives up to what you want to happen for your clients. I think that is maybe a secret sauce that we're not considering here, is that the brand that you're presenting can be that brand of team building. It can be the brand of building your network and your relationships and your partnerships.
So along that point, Jeff, and I know, we're looking at the relationship with architect designer, right? That's intense conversation. In addition to that, there is the emotional journey and there's the pain points that
Yeah.
customers have. But here's the value to that point is that through the platform, right? Through whether it's my podcast, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram stories, and I'm very active on those. For years, I've been preaching the same thing. Like if you're hiring AFT, Brad Leavitt, to build your house, you better have a designer. I'm not going to do your job. And most clients are like, well, I know what I want. Okay, that's fine. But do you understand all the specifics that go into that? All the CAD drawings, all the 2D, what's the countertop thickness? What's the overhang, right? How are we lining up your cabinetry? What's the shower head height? I mean, there's just these really, I have to show the value of the designer. And so through that platform, that team building, I speak about, hey, when you have an interior designer, your house is typically going to resell for more money because it's put together correctly, right? there's something to be said, and we went through this with COVID, that yeah, if we're locked in our house, there's value to spending on, aesthetics. And am I happy in my house? Am I inspired to work here? If I'm closed into my house, is the furniture comfortable? I mean, there's so many variables here. And then a big thing I speak about is, and I have real life painful examples as a contractor, that if I've built without a designer, the client hates me at the end. I'm stressed with them. The build takes 2 to 3 months longer. It's over budget. I'm waiting on answers, and it's just so difficult. But if I can work as a team from the beginning and the client understands this, so really what's happened is, not only do we collaborate with our architects and designers, but now it's so gospel in, like, in what we preach online, if you will, is that the clients come to us and they say, okay, Brad, we want you to build a house. We know we need a designer. We know we need an architect. Here's what we want. Where do we go next? And then we can carry them through. So a lot of it's just education through that platform.
Is that something? I mean, I think you're still in rarefied air. Risingers out there doing it. You're doing it. There are a few of you that are really out there at that level of content, educating clients, as you say, doing all of these things. There are a few architects that are out there similarly. Is that how we raise the level? Is that how we raise all the ships? Is more and more of us get better at educating through creating content?
It's the only way. It is the only way that we elevate this industry. Because here, those that are in the industry, we're passionate about it. And those that are in the industry, and I tell clients all the time, like, one of my lines is when they come to me, I'm like, I don't care if you spend 100 grand, Jeff, or 10 million. Like, I want to work for good people that understand the value we bring. It's a very tough industry, right? But the thing is, a lot of times we make it hard on ourselves that it has to be, because we don't communicate, we don't have processes, we don't have systems, we don't have communication. Like, these things that are low hanging fruit we can be doing. But getting back to the core of your question is that what I found, as we become more transparent, like, and this is, I started with a couple builders, and we do like a contractor coalition summit where we did our first one in Nashville in May, and we have our next one in Huntington Beach. And it's like stuff I wish I knew 10 years ago, started my business, come out, sign up. And in 3 days, we're going to hit you with everything, how you should be pricing a house, client expectations, how you work with architects, designers, like, how do you run your social media? And so what it gets to is that as we educate the public, and it's not only you bring up Matt Reisinger, right now, we were fortunate to be selected to do the National Home of the Year. It's a net zero building science house. It's off the grid. It's this amazing house. But what ends up happening is like speaking about net zero, speaking about building science, and making it show that you can still have this ultra modern home in the desert, all glass. I mean, there's so much glass in this house, and it's still net zero. Like, and by showing this, now clients are coming to me saying, Brad, I want a net zero house. I want an ICF house. And so you're educating clients, not just in the team approach for the value of the architect and designer, these amazing consultants that bring so much value, but also the science and sustainability. And hey, what's our world going to look like here? How are we saving water? I live in the desert. How are we conserving water? How are we conserving electricity? And the grid hasn't been maintained on a national level forever. So these are things that are really important that all of us can share knowledge we have that we've learned.
Christian asked a question. This may be dangerous for all of us as well as the audience, but he wants to know, what do you think of HGTV?
I saw that question. I kind of laughed in my head.
Yeah, we all love it.
Not to lose my train. Yeah, I was trying not to lose my train of thought there for a minute. So HGTV is very misleading, right? And I know enough people that are on the show or have been on Netflix, and the challenge is it's a TV show, and so it does create unrealistic expectations for the client. Thinking about what things cost or the time frame to build it, and none of those line up with TV, right? Because in TV, there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of things being filmed and edited, and it shows like it's happening overnight, and there's products being donated. Like, you'll see them, oh, we did this kitchen, the cabinetry was like $8,000, and I'm like, where are you buying cabinetry for $8,000? But what I'll say is, that's where we have the opportunity that, yes, HGTV has, their brand, Netflix has their brand, and they're showing one way. But as clients follow us, then they see the real process. Here's how we get from A to B. Here's not just the finished bathroom, but here's that rough stage, and here's what it takes to get there. So I don't say we have to combat it, but we just have to be more thoughtful in our communication to those that follow us so that they understand, what really goes into our projects.
I,
I
I,
was just
I
going to
think,
say
go ahead.
on Instagram, it's like if you're following a particular project or contractors will post about the same project over a course of a year, and that really illustrates how long it really
It
takes.
takes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right along the lines with what I was going to say. I think it's, you've got the HGTV show that's going to be a half hour long, I think. Um, so they're trying to highlight, and do this project and do all these things in this project. Hopefully most of us understand, most of the audience understands it's not completely realistic, but then they can go over to Instagram, as Catherine rightly pointed out, and AFT Construction's Instagram account, and get granular. Maybe it's one of your stories, you're on my list every morning when I open up Instagram. It's like, wow, there's like 30 little whatever they're called in the stories, and it's this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece, and each one of those pieces granularly um, illustrates a lot more eventually, as a whole, than the HGTV show will ever illustrate. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a big difference there. Um, this is a good question, Catherine.
Okay, so James Petty wants you to speak about working in high-end residential. Did you work up to high-end, or did you only start with what you ultimately wanted to work on to not get stuck doing things you're not interested in?
That's a really good question by James, actually, and I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with. Any key, and Jeff, you'll speak about this way more profound than I will, but when you think about marketing, you don't market where I am today, but where I want to be, right? And
Yep.
you don't market things like, if I want to build a custom house, I'm not going to be marketing like a bathroom facelift, right? Because that I'll get phone calls about that. But where I'm getting, without going through my entire life journey here, but as I mentioned early on, I grew up in San Diego. I born in La Mesa, went to Helix, and my father and uncles were electricians, and so I was really fortunate working in the trades. I worked in Coronado and Rancho Santa Fe and La Jolla, in these beautiful parts of San Diego, right? In these beautiful homes. And I'm like, I want to do that. Like, this is what I want to build. You can't just go from electrician to like build these homes. So I went to college. I did construction management at BYU up in Utah, and then moved to Phoenix in '05. And I worked for 6 years out of college. And I worked for a large commercial firm, and we did really high-end residential and commercial. In fact, I was fortunate to be a project manager on this Omni Mauna Lucia, which is in Paradise Valley, and it's this $350 million hotel. And at the hotel, there's 34 residences that have custom homes that live at the hotel. It's just this amazing property. And so really, but it's a journey. When I first came out of college for a year, I did production homes, just pretty basic production homes, learn scheduling, kind of learn that fast track, how to manage a lot of things. And then you get to go for 5 years and do this before starting my company 10 years ago. But when I started my company, I had this experience. I worked in these high-end homes in San Diego as a kid. I'd done college. I, worked on this high-end hotel, but no one's going to hand you a $2 million custom home, when you come out. And so it's the same thing. You do what you can. I did a kitchen renovation. I did like a deck and a patio. I did, the bathroom, and I did these things, but marketing, I would show the quality. I'd show the thought process. And then that turns into the next one and the next one. And it builds. And it wasn't until about 2017 that like things took off. And now we're fortunate to do many homes over, 10 million, which I never thought I'd get to that point, even though I knew I wanted to. So you have to know where you want to go and then market to that and build towards that. And then of course, grasp at any network experience. And, there's a lot out there willing to share.
So you're another example of one of those 10-year overnight successes then.
Yeah,
or overnight
online. You look at
suggest.
this like, yeah, everyone's like online, like you're like, oh, this overnight success. You're like, I've been at this since I was like 14. I mean, truth be told, I'm 41, right? So it's like 27 years, like of a pipeline working to this point. It doesn't just happen. And we all know there's a lot of hard work to get you to that level.
So you were earlier. You mentioned your summits. You did the one in Nashville, and then you've got one coming up in Huntington Beach. And so there may be some people out there that are thinking, "Oh, wow, why would you teach your competitors potentially?" I suppose. but are you also intentionally or maybe even unintentionally leveraging the summits to find good partners and maybe even subs and other people that are working with you?
Again, Jeff, you're hammering me with all these really good questions. That one's really good. This is something I thought off about because a lot of people are like, well, why do you share I talk about pool plan scheduling. I have a YouTube video showing how we do our scheduling process, right? And when we signed up for the first summit in Nashville, I had 7 builders from Arizona attend in Nashville, like fly Nashville. And 7 of them are my competitors. I mean, not all of them are, but I know 2 of them specifically are my competitors. But this goes back to the conversation. Why aren't we all playing from the same starting line, right? Why is this such a secret saying, this is how you do cost plus, this is how you're transparent with the client, this is how you do your billing, this is how you do your scheduling, and this is how you do your project management, and these are systems we use. Why? Like I I'm confident in who I am. I know our brand, and it's that mentality of abundance again, that I would rather have be surrounded by a ton of good builders and architects and designers that understand the industry, right? Because if my competitor knows how to schedule properly, there's a lot of overlap in the subs we use. That means my subs aren't as constrained with him. They're more available for me. So I look at the rising tide raises all ships, right? That, hey, the more I share, not only does it educate the clients, but also my peers. And that through that, hopefully as a community and nationally as builders, we can, by doing more sustainable homes, more net zero homes, well, that's going to lower the pricing and entry point for our clients because it's more of a demand. The pricing structure will be more consistent. So, us as builders, and I'll speak to builders specifically, that how many times are we, I don't want to say taken advantage of, but we just are essentially used by our clients because, they'll push and they'll push and they'll beg and they'll ask. And if we don't really understand why or how to run a business, we just get pushed over. And it's such a low barrier to entry in construction, and so many companies fail. Why don't we help them now so that they're prepared properly when those storms come and that they can, gauge this? So I just see way more upside than I do downside.
Yeah. I, Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I'm about to change the subject, so if you have more to say.
Well, I think there's probably more parallels between your point of view on the construction side of the table and our audience's point of view on the architecture side of the table than a lot of people think. I think there's a lot of people in the architecture world that go, oh my gosh, the people don't see the value or this, that, and the other. And you're speaking to exactly that from the construction side, and that idea of supporting everybody and the rising tide bringing up all the ships. I think that's something that a lot of the folks in our audience, I hope they take to heart, because to me, I'm hearing it kind of straddling the two worlds, going, we can apply this. We can apply this in architecture. I think it's necessary to apply this in architecture. So I'm glad that you shared that.
Yeah, before Catherine changes the subject, I mean, speaking specifically to designers and architects, sorry, Catherine, is that what I love, I love seeing it now on our side, right here in Phoenix, that they'll be, and I'll give a quick example. I know 2 designers that are extremely talented and I've worked with, and they're amazing. And one was charging their value, what they should be charging. The other one wasn't. They were being way underpaid. And for me, understanding that, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you should be here. But not only that, but those 2 started networking. And some of these designers have these close knit groups now where they're consistent. Their talent level, their execution. They may have different styles and personalities, which some clients will gravitate to. But price wise, system wise, they're consistent now. And that's how it should be, because the client should understand the value the designers bring in or the architects bring in. And architects that travel and have done school and have an amazing team, like, there should be value. They should be compensated for that, and so many times we're not.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, so now I'm not actually changing the subject, but more specifically, what are you looking for in an architect? I think that's what we all want to know. Like, how can we be better architects for contractors, and we want the relationship to work too. So, what do you look for in an architect?
My biggest thing is collaboration, right? I mean, and this comes from me too. And so one of the architects I've struggled with, just to be transparent, is I'll bring in, and then everything's in the dark. They're kind of, working on floor plan and elevations, and then going to their consultants doing the engineering, and we're not really involved. And or they're having meetings, we're not present. because credit to my architects, like they do an amazing job, but at the same time, like they're not the day-to-day to pricing. So they may be telling a client, oh yeah, this should be like $500 a foot just based on, a house they did maybe a year ago, but that price has totally changed. So collaborating early on with the builder. And then I love the architects that'll say, hey, Brad, for stem walls, do you prefer masonry stem walls or concrete stem walls, right? What type of plumbing are we doing? Copper or, PEX, and so what are some of the building science sites, right? Like window brands, what window brands are you working with? And so that collaboration where now it's the architect, because my opinion is between architect, designer, builder, we can solve almost every issue on the project without involving the client and stressing them out. So that more collaboration where we're looking at this as a team. And it's important for me to uplift that too. And my team members that, hey, we can't blame the architect or the designer. Let's try to solve this behind the scenes. So for me, a big thing is collaboration.
Yeah, I love what you say about fixing things behind the scenes and not stressing out the client, because that's so important. And that's the potential of actually having a relationship, is that you don't have to bring more stress to them. The worst is when people are, the architect's talking about the contractor to the owner and the contractor's
Oh,
talking to the
yeah.
owner about the architect. And that's just never, it's not good for anybody. So along those
Yeah.
lines too, we had these other quick questions. What do you think of dimensioning to an 1/8 inch or a 16th inch? Do you love it when we do that? Do you build to a
Uh,
16th of an inch?
yeah, I do love to the 16th. I mean, so that's great. So,
Yeah.
more, not only just yeah, like dimensions, specifics, details. A big thing for me is details. So one thing that helps with architects is we spoke about not just the collaboration, but this is a really good question, is just understanding the building practice, because sometimes an architect may make a decision just based on the consultant's recommendation, but that could affect the build time,
Mhm.
basic availability of product, specifically speaking about concrete or masonry details or structural steel details, which we have in our modern homes. There could be different ways to do that if we're involved. And so the more specifications, especially on thermal breaks or, rain screens or some of these, waterproofing details, these houses are getting more complex, more windows, more items on the facade, on the exterior. So the more collaboration just with client specification and or architecture specification, and especially architect education, that continuing education to know the products that are available that fit that style. So
Yeah.
most of them are very passionate about that, but continue to do that is great. I'd rather have more plans than less. So
And what do we put on our plans that are completely useless to you?
oh,
I mean,
that's
I
a
know
good
that's broad.
question.
That's a broad question, but
Yeah, I don't even know. I'd have to go back and go through a few of my plans. I don't know if there's anything that's completely useless. I mean, I will maybe answer this a different way, is that I've had architects that, aren't doing grid lines, or they're not doing like door schedules or window schedules. Like, and I'm like, what's happening? So to me, it's almost like, I think the more you have, the better, right? Because it just leaves less for interpretation. I don't do well in an interpretation world. My subcontractors don't do well in that world, and I do my clients. So the more that we can have defined, it's just beneficial for us.
that makes sense. All right, that was it. That was it. It wasn't a total change of subject, but we just it would be great if there was some system by which you could have like an honest conversation with a contractor who might say, this is not, or I need X, Y, and Z more. You need to do more, or we need to talk more, or, I finding somebody who's interested in having a relationship is kind of awkward. You can't just, hey, I love your Instagram account, and how do you feel about relationships? And let's get creepy. That would be kind of, you have
well,
to kind of,
yeah, but let me say this, Catherine. What's interesting, here's where I feel that social media has been a little bit of a cheat sheet, is for me, there are a lot of great cabinet companies or trade partners, architects and designers that aren't even present on social media in Phoenix, right? It's a big market. That's just how it is. However, there's a hungry generation, in our industry, they're always like, keep craft alive. There's not enough people in the trades. I'll push back a little bit because I see a lot of young people, my garage door company, my trim company, my countertop company. These are young 30-year-old kids that are like building businesses. And what I've seen is people that are really passionate about being on social media, like care about their brand. You're public, like anyone can like be out there. You're not going to hide, and be this dirty contractor because you have a brand out there that's public to everybody. And so what I found is that those people that are really passionate about building that side of the brand are going to be passionate about the end product as well. And I
mm,
find it a lot easier to collaborate with architects and designers that are avid, users on social media, as well as my trade partners and suppliers that are the same. Because now they definitely, if they're on social media for the most part, they'll have that team approach.
Interesting.
That makes sense to me. I mean, if you're putting it out there, right? If you're displaying it, you're gonna shoot a video or photography or whatever it is. You're not gonna. I think that makes sense. Hey, if I'm going to be active on social media, I've got it's worthy of social media, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And the reputation, if you're like a really bad contractor and you're out there on social media, I mean, it's not, the secret's not going to last very long, right? It's,
Mm-mm.
This is
it's not
true.
like other markets where you can
This is
just
true.
go hide and keep ripping people off. So to me, it shows that people that are on that actually care and want to learn and want to succeed and want to progress.
Not really thought about this in terms of social media being the collaboration tool, but everything that you're explaining makes sense to me.
Mm. Do you think there'll ever be like a Bumble for contractors and architects? Like something like that?
That's
When
interesting.
you
That's kind
create
of
it,
Yeah.
yeah, a Bumble or a Match or something,
Right. Yeah. Something like
it's pretty
that.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, maybe that's
exactly.
our next idea. We'll have to start that app between us
Right.
three.
I'll give you a call
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. When you think about project timeline and collaboration and team building, what do you think is the ultimate timeline in terms of who comes into the process at what point? You've got a client. Let's say they go to the architect. Maybe we play it in two different ways. You've got a client that goes to an architect first. At what point does the collaboration between architect and contractor need to start?
Another really good question. And I think this is good for just the whole theme here, the conversation, the collaboration is that, and I'll give some credit. There's a PHX architecture, Eric Peterson. He's, and he has office in Dallas and Beverly Hills, I believe, but he's really big that, there's been a couple jobs. I mean, a couple of the only ones that haven't come to me first, they've gone to him. And from the very first meeting, as they here's our pricing, to do the architecture, and here's the timeline, and here's where we're at to get the permit. Client signs, you're going to hire PHX as architect. Right away, he says, before we start, you need a builder. And the client's like, most clients are pretty good about it. Some look at him like, why? And he's like, I have to have a builder on board as we start going through design. So most of the really, I shouldn't even say talented, but most of the most successful projects I've been a part of, before the architect even gets to like a floor plan or conceptual, they have the interior designer and contractor on board. And that's how they are. And that's how many of my other peers are, that I won't start floor plan until we have a designer as well. If I introduce the architect and they hire him, I got to make sure we have our designer, because a designer is going to have a lot more feedback on the interior as well as the architect exterior, right? But having those three team members, now we know the client has a budget. Every client has a budget, no matter what it is. But you're starting from day one on the same page with all three parties, and you just have to. So
You know
floor plan.
that
I mean, before you start, Jeff, before pen
Yeah.
to paper, you put the team together.
Well, I think that you said budget, right? And I think it's so natural for people to start. It's so natural for people to start realizing things. Oh well, I've got this for my budget, and I can spend. The whole thing has to work together. So I like that idea of assembling the whole team from the very beginning, because we've got to have a comprehensive budget, not bits and pieces of budgets that go here, there, and otherwise. So, um,
Yeah,
I
budget's true to everyone, and that's very sensitive. I mean, so
yeah,
understanding the end goal of the budget, well, that does help us through design, which is a must. So, and I can answer that question if you want from James real quick, if you
yeah,
want, Jeff, is that he
absolutely.
asked
Yep.
about the pre-construction. And this is big. I teach about this at the summit too, is yeah, I mean, I charge a pre-construction service contract, a PSA, on every project, and my clients pay, for the time that we're going to be at every meeting with the architect and designer. All that pre-construction time and the budgets and, vetting construction details and supply chain and working with vendors. Like, so yeah, we have a PSA that is paid for on every project that we have in our portfolio. It's not the same cost, of course, as an architect and designer are, but it is a portion that covers a lot of our overhead leading up to when we commence, and then that's where we capture the cost to run the project.
Janine is sliding in just under the wire. She's in Arizona. She's one of our audience members that is an Arizonan. So great to have you, Janine. That's all right. We've got about 4 minutes left for you to jump into the conversation. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just
Katharine, what were you
wondering
saying?
if yeah, did you use an architect for your own house? We assume you built your own house.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, in the near future, well, I don't know how near because we're so small to build the suits, but we will do a house, and I will have an architect. I won't design it myself. And this is because I understand the value, as I mentioned this whole conversation. So even though I build these high-end luxury homes and we do these amazing projects, there's 100% certainty that I will have an amazing interior designer and architect on my build. For now, we've been pretty conservative. My wife and I, and as we're, kids are growing up and we're building the business. It's one of those things. But yeah, we will have an architect and designer, no doubt.
You're doing so many things. You got the Icon net zero house that you're working on, which is amazing. I posted a link to that, by the way. If you're in the Entree Architect Facebook group, just go to today's post about this conversation with Brad, and there's a link to the website and information about that house. You do a content on Instagram and on YouTube, like you mentioned. As you look out 3 years, 5 years, however far you want to look out, where's this going for you?
That's a good question, Jeff. We will, and maybe before I answer that, Michelle had a question about if the architect does interiors, and yeah, we work with architects to do both. So no worries at all. Whether it's separate entities or together, we work with both. But to your question, we will expand. So we have plans already in place on some great areas around the country. Well, AFT will soon open. I continue to expand the continuing education through the Coalition Summit, the podcast and the thought leadership. And we have an amazing team. Like I don't have an interest of being, 800 employees. That's not my interest. We have core people and we're going to be in some core areas of the country. But a big part will be just those platforms and videos and trying in every way to elevate this industry. There's so many great things about it, and it is so hard. Maybe the restaurant or food industry can relate, but I mean, those are two of the hardest industries, right, to be successful in. So,
Nicole wants to know if she's thinking of something to do to make her put herself out there, and she wants to have this get together between architects and contractors, like a mixer, I guess, kind of. And she wants to know if you would consider joining.
Plan it, and I'll be there. And
right,
I say that because it's when you think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Then she said, if he says yes, then I guess I need to make it happen and not just think and talk about it.
So I know we're short on time, but really quick story. One of my best employees, he was from Colorado. He set up a mixer here at the mixer because there are just a bunch of us friends on Instagram. He approached me and said, Brad, if there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to work for you. I hired him. He's one of my best guys, right? I mean, these things happen in areas. I love meeting contractors, designers, architects around the country. That's how these relationships are built. So do a mixer. Maybe I'll be in San Diego, or wherever, but we'll do it. So
yeah,
well, she's
Nicole's
in
actually in
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Or
yeah.
Nicole's in Phoenix. Yeah, Nicole's in Phoenix. I was thinking it's Michelle, but yeah. So Nicole set one up, and yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, all right.
That's awesome.
See, I arranged it for you, Nicole. So now you have to send me some photos when it's done.
Now you've got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I saw Christian's suggestion as well. So there's a Architects and Allies Facebook architect community Facebook group. Is a closed group just for architects to talk about business of architecture stuff. But there's a sister group called Architects and Allies, which is fairly self-explanatory, and that's what Christian is talking about. We've got product reps and architects in there, builders, all types of different people. So I'll send you more information on that.
Great.
And you may decide to join the Architects and Allies group. So
love it.
How's that for a pitch? This has been a great, and I think hopefully it's been eye-opening for a lot of folks in our audience didn't expect it to go, but I think so valuable to what we're all trying to do here. If you had, Brad, if you had one suggestion for small firm architects who are in the audience, one suggestion for them to either find a new relationship or build a better relationship with a contractor, what would it be?
Start building video. I mean, honestly, I said video because like all of us are uncomfortable, right? Get in front of video over time. You end up being more comfortable having that video out there, even if you don't want to put your face on there. But start building that personality, whatever it is. Show the process there because people are watching, clients are watching, your network of builders and designers are watching, especially speaking to the architect specifically. So just start using that. And all of us can say, I'm too busy. Well, look, our competitors are doing it. Everyone has a smartphone, everyone has this in their hand. And so they're looking you up. And if you don't have, most people now are looking up your Instagram. I'm telling you, clients are looking up your Instagram or LinkedIn page as opposed to maybe your website. So do video, put the personality out there, and it'll just help, especially for some of us that are introverts to be a little bit more extroverts. So
Awesome.
Are you an introvert, or do you consider yourself shy? Because you're hiding it. You're hiding
well,
it pretty well.
well, I think I've become more of an extrovert, especially you get out there, but like any extrovert, I need a lot of introvert time because you're out there all the time. So I'm like, sometimes I just need my time where it's just me, and I have 6 kids, so life's crazy busy for me. So that's
Oh,
just one of those things.
sweet.
But
Yep. Okay. You don't have a lot of time to yourself then.
no time to myself, but it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great, Brad. I really appreciate you joining us. Really, really educating us on some of these aspects, and we appreciate you talking about the value, um, the networking, the building relationships, the putting yourself out there. These are all great pieces of information and great pieces of advice. So thanks for this conversation today. I really appreciate it. Um, to everybody that's out there in the audience, thank you. Thanks for making this possible, because without you, I say this pretty much every week, but without you, we would not have had this opportunity to talk to Brad. So thanks for being a part of this thing that we call Context and Clarity. Appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for your questions and your comments. Next week, as we look forward, I'm headed to Chicago on Tuesday, actually, for the AIA National Conference on Architecture. So next Thursday on Context and Clarity Live from the expo floor. As I've mentioned this week, I've got a poll inside the Facebook group. Who do you want me to talk to on the expo floor? I put a link where you can look up all the vendors that are going to be there. Let me know who you want to talk to. There's going to be a surprise at the end of the conversation.
Is it Obama?
Next Thursday. It's not Obama. Obama is keynoting on Friday to wrap
that would
up
be
the
a
conference.
surprise.
That'd be a big surprise. Yeah. Secret Service and all. But let me know that. We'll be there live next week. So until then, to all of you, again, I appreciate please take care of yourself, be well, stay safe, keep those around you safe and well. Find some way to rejuvenate, breathe a little bit, relax a little bit. We do this every day. This is the long game. So take care of yourself so that you can stay in the race. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. And hope I'll see you all somewhere sometime soon. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.